done without Mary Whitehouse. Joining me anyway now to reminisce with us for another couple of moments or two are two absolute legends of British music, Ian Anderson and Richard Thompson. And actually, I remember seeing both of you start your careers, or certainly when I first saw you in London in the late 60s, at more or less the same time. I remember seeing you first time, Richard, at Middle Earth in Covent Garden in
Yes.
summer of 67 with Fairport Convention.
Absolutely. We played Middle Earth all the time. It seemed like about once a week, you know.
Yeah.
The old joke was, the biggest break of your career was, 6 hours between sets at Middle Earth. So you play at, 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. and had to think of something to do in the time in between.
That's right. I could have moved in there every weekend. I used to absolutely love the place.
It was extraordinary, yeah. It had a basement in Covent Garden, yeah.
I mean, there was an amazing sense of optimism in the air somehow, wasn't there, in the late 60s? And
there was an amazing sense of terror because, I'm sure you were the same, and lots of us, we'd probably quit school and music was the big chance. If it had gone wrong, some of us didn't have a plan B or a plan C. So it was actually, I always remember it as being a bit frightening, being now determined to try and make it as a musician, but knowing that the odds were fairly seriously stacked against me or us and the band. But if it was hard then, it must be a lot harder today.
Yeah.
I mean, strangely, at that time, record companies were very confused about the direction of music, and they didn't know who to sign, so they just signed everybody, including Fairport. Within a space of like 3 months, from the time we started, we got signed in 3 months. Which is quite extraordinary.
It's an interesting point, isn't it? Because then, with Jethro Tull, for example, I think, if anything, you're even bigger in America than you were here, Ian, weren't you? And so much of the success that British bands were getting in the States was driven, the fuel in that engine was American FM radio, wasn't it?
And our sole appearance on the Old Grey Whistle Test wasn't, in fact, from your previous rather smaller studio. It was from the wide open spaces of Madison Square Gardens. It was under the auspices of the Old Grey Whistle Test that we did the world's first live satellite broadcast of music from there.
And it wasn't just that we were there filming you and we reflected the performance here on screen in Britain. That was massive news. Your appearance at Madison Square Garden that time, Ian, was huge news, wasn't it, across all media? I mean, I remember sitting in the hotel room in the lead up to it all, and the main, I think it would have been ABC or NBC News or whatever it was, you were about second story, Jethro Tull arrived in town. So there was a kind of acknowledgement and an embracing of rock music in America, even more probably than here. It was part of the whole culture there.
Well, possibly, but I think in radio there was. Yeah, radio was the big thing. You could get. They played albums. Led Zeppelin famously never released singles, and they would play every track on an album. Or in the case of Thick as a Brick in 1972, they played the whole thing. 40-odd minutes of continuous music, which could never have happened in the UK. Yeah. But then on the other hand, we did have our own rather special scene, and I think we always, as they say, punched above our weight in terms of having real international success for a whole generation of British bands in the late 60s and through the 70s. And then, of course, again in the 80s with the synth pop era of people like Gary Newman, who suddenly, wow, this is the new thing, but it's still British.
Yes. And Richard, I mean, much the same with you in terms of translating your acceptance in America, because what I love about where you are, part of where your career is at now, it's based in Nashville, it's based in the Americana scene. You're a trailblazer winner with the American, Lifetime Achievement acknowledged by the Americana Music Association in Nashville, which is a great thing, because Nashville is still the home of the song.
Well, it is, it's home of the song, and it's the home of this real counterculture as well. What they call Americana, I think it really just means roots. It really means roots music. So it includes people like me, who don't play a very American style at all, but I'm included in it. Perhaps if Bob Marley was alive today, he'd be considered Americana in some twisted way, So it's nice that there is a place for what I call serious songwriters, serious music. So that whole Nashville underground Americana thing is a really good movement, I think.
Yeah, we both do, don't we?
Yeah,
Spend a
yeah,
lot of time
that's
there.
it,
And
yeah.
I mean, Buddy Miller is a great hero of mine.
Yeah, me too.
And of course, you worked with Buddy in Nashville.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just wonderful that not everything is driven by money. You know, the music can still flourish. So sometimes the worse it gets in terms of corporate interest in music, then the bigger the counterculture, the bigger the backlash.
Yeah, I think
What's really good is the clash of cultures. Imagine prog rock at the Ryman Theatre, the home of the Grand Ole Opry. Boy, do I feel like a fish out of water when I play there.
That happened?
Oh, I've been playing there a few times, yeah. It's the strangest place to play.
Oh, yeah.
But it's absolutely the heart of Nashville music, isn't
Yeah,
it?
Mother Church of country music.
Yeah, they even used to have a picture of old Elvis in the corridor at the back in his flappy trousers early, completely oblivious to the fact that they had him on once and they thought he was so terrible he would never came back. That was it. He was back. But now, of course, it's like, we had Elvis here at the Ryman.
Yeah. Did James Brown play the Grand Ole Opry? Did you know that?
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I'm sure you know the story.
Bless them.
Yeah. We must move on. We've still got so much to pack into the show, but Richard, we'll see you again in a second. Ian Anderson, thank you so much
Great
for being
pleasure.
here.
Great to see you.
Pleasure to see you.